Vietnam is an incredible destination. Unfortunately, a small minority are dreaming up new ways to scam you out of your hard-earned money. The first Airbnb problem you might encounter is that when you show up to the address you were given, the place looks nothing like it did in the photos. And I'm not just talking about the wallpaper or the couch being different. In fact, it's a completely different property than what was advertised. The host might try to explain this away by saying that the place you booked was actually fully booked, but they didn't want to cancel on you, so instead they relocated you to this property which is supposedly just as nice. But in all likelihood, the property they advertised never existed, and it's all just a bait and switch scam. Sometimes they might try to legitimize this switch by saying that they can't provide the original accommodation that you booked for a day or two because there's an electrical problem or a plumbing issue. If they contact you at the last minute with this problem, I would assume the worst and attempt to cancel for a refund. A lot of these scammers will also have their places listed on platforms like Expedia or Booking.com as private hosts. If you show up to your Airbnb and the place looks nothing like the listing, your first step should be to contact Airbnb and ask them to refund and rebook you. Lastly, it's always a good idea to book everything on your credit card. That way you can do a chargeback if everything else fails. Another scam that you might come across in Vietnam is the hotel asking you to cancel the booking you made online with one of the major platforms such as Expedia or Hotels.com and asking you to pay directly at the hotel instead. Supposedly, this is so that the hotel doesn't have to pay any commission, which will help them out as a small business. They might also try to tell you that the room category you booked is actually sold out. But if you cancel your booking, they'll give you a great room upgrade when you arrive and pay in person. If you're a kind-hearted person or if you just want a room upgrade, you might have sympathy and proceed to cancel your booking. Unfortunately, your kindness might not be repaid. We've heard several accounts of people turning up to the hotel thinking they still had a booking after cancelling, only to discover that the hotel now insists they have no idea who they are and are unfortunately full. Or, to add insult to injury, they might quote you a higher rate than you had in your original booking. Unfortunately, since you cancelled your booking, the booking platform can't help you, and you'll be left scrambling to find accommodation at the last minute. There might be several reasons for the hotel to pull this trick, but in all likelihood, they've probably gotten a booking request that would earn them more money. Since the booking platforms won't let the hotel cancel randomly on guests, the hotel has to convince the guests to cancel their booking themselves. But before I tell you how to avoid this scam, make sure you subscribe for more no-nonsense travel tips that'll help you plan your own grand adventure. The easiest way to avoid this problem is to exclusively book through the major online platforms and not to cancel your reservation. Even if the hotel offers you a room upgrade for canceling, you should decline it and keep your booking. You should also communicate entirely through the booking platform whenever possible. That way, the platform can see what's been written. Talk about what might happen to you if you leave a negative review in Vietnam. Vietnam has very strong anti-defamation laws. And even if you write an entirely factual review with no hyperbole, it could still be considered that you are trying to cause harm to the business or the individual simply by leaving a poor review online. Whether the police would actually try to pursue a tourist for a negative review, or how they would even try to pursue them, I really don't know. But sometimes just the threat is enough for people to remove their negative review. Another and arguably simpler way to have a negative review removed is to simply pay the reviewer to remove it. From reading through different Vietnam travel forums, I've actually seen a few people share this experience, where after leaving a negative review, the company reached out to them and offered to pay them just to remove the bad review. What this all boils down to is that you shouldn't put too much weight on the positive reviews that you see on booking sites. Fake reviews are a huge problem in Vietnam. Reviews are an amazing travel tool that we rely really heavily on. But when fake reviews get thrown into the mix, it can become really difficult to know which ones you can actually trust. If you see a business with a really high number of reviews where all the positive ones use the same keywords, then that's a pretty good sign that these reviews are either fake or have been paid for in one way or another. For example, if a small shop has, let's say, 400 reviews and they're all 5 stars, well, that would make me very suspicious. In all fairness, sometimes a place is just that good. But I would still take the time to read the reviews and treat them with a little bit of extra suspicion. The problem of fake reviews is not limited to Google Maps. In fact, the reviews on hotel booking platforms like Agoda or Expedia might actually be even less trustworthy. The best way to combat fake reviews is to always sort the reviews by the lowest score first. Some of them you can probably dismiss as being exaggerated or overly picky. But if a hotel consistently gets poor reviews for their cleanliness, or a restaurant has several low reviews saying that they got food poisoning, well, I would take those seriously and give that place a miss. In general, I don't trust the reviews on booking sites, except for the lowest scores, which I'll usually read through for any warning signs. So, before you book a hotel, make sure you read through the Google reviews first. Taxi scams are unfortunately ubiquitous in Vietnam. The 2 biggest ones are going to be switching bills and pretending that the taxi meter is broken. The switching bill scam is a trick that can happen at any store, but it is a favorite amongst taxi drivers. Essentially, the driver will pretend that you gave him a lower denomination bill than what you actually handed them. In Vietnam, this is most likely to happen with the 100,000 dong bill and the 10,000 dong bill, because with all the zeros that are involved, you might just question yourself enough not to kick up a fuss. Of course, they can also be a lot more obvious and simply gaslight you entirely. For example, they might insist that you gave them a 20,000 dong bill when you clearly remember giving them a 500,000 dong bill. The broken taxi meter scam is a worldwide favorite, and Vietnamese taxi drivers evidently couldn't resist joining in on the trend. In this scenario, the driver will pretend that the meter is broken and will instead offer you a fixed price. Since you're a newly arrived tourist, you have no idea that the price they've quoted you is actually entirely outrageous for the distance that you're traveling. An offshoot of this scam is if you don't negotiate a fare beforehand, and you also don't insist on having the meter running. At the end of the trip, the driver will simply insist on an exaggerated fare that you'll be forced to pay. The easiest way to avoid taxi scams is to not take taxis in the first place. This is actually really easy in Vietnam. The ride-sharing app Grab is available pretty much everywhere in Vietnam, and it's an easy and safe way to get a ride knowing that the price is already fixed. If you have any questions about visiting Vietnam, let me know in the comments and I'll try to answer every single one. Although booking through the Grab app is safe, you will come across people trying to scam you by pretending to be Grab drivers. This usually will happen at airports, where as soon as you exit the terminal doors, you'll be greeted by someone wearing a Grab jacket. They'll try and tell you that they'll give you a better rate than what you're seeing on Grab, and that their car is ready to go so you don't have to wait. Whatever you do, do not believe them and don't follow them. Instead, just be patient and only use the Grab app. You should also make sure that the car you get into matches what you see on your Grab booking. If you're driving a scooter around Vietnam, you'll eventually need to fill up the tank. And this is where you might run into another scam. You'll find lots of vendors selling bottles of gasoline, but unless you're about to run out, I would stick to proper fuel stations. The plastic bottles of gasoline that you buy are always going to be a mystery in terms of quantity and quality. With that being said, even at a proper gas station, you still have to exercise some caution. The most common scam you'll run into is the note switching scam. This is where they'll pretend that you gave them a smaller note than you did when they give you your change. In Vietnam, the most common switch is, as we already discussed, between the 10,000 and the 100,000 Vietnamese dong bill, simply because they look quite similar, and with all the zeros on the end, it can be confusing. But this scam can be done with any bill. They'll simply take it, turn around, and then pretend that you gave them a lower denomination bill. The best way to combat this scam is to prepay for your fuel and only hand over enough money for the amount that you need. And make sure you hold the note so that it's very obvious what it is. When I filled up, I would also say the amount I was handing over, just on the off chance that the attendant understood English. You might not end up with a perfectly full tank, but you also won't get scammed. Now that you know how to avoid the big scams in Vietnam, make sure you check out our video on which places in Vietnam are still worth visiting, and which places you should avoid because they've turned into full-blown tourist traps.